in this poster, which I've shown here, imaginary lockdown masters, well, it's not quite real, but isn't it, could you say it's surreal, right? When you look at that, let's zoom in a little bit. You've got these syringes coming down instead of teeth. It looks pretty scary, doesn't it? So it might actually generate some anxiety in you, right? So doesn't that make it real? Even though it's surreal, you know, there's much worse photos than that. But it tells you a message, doesn't it? Who are the lockdown masters? Can they be identified and stopped? And I don't know who they are. I haven't met them personally, but we've shown a lot of the information. A lot of the movies we show a lot of the timelines or the bloodlines, let's say. And well, there's one particular one which I can't remember the name of it. Something of power, anyway. It's bloodlines, and it gives you some pretty good clues. Anyway, so number 2, let's assume they are real, all right, but are they also a product of imagination? And point 3 is, how can they be both imaginary and real at the same time? Is it because the mind cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality? And point 5 is, doesn't quantum physics say all is mind, the universe is mental? It's a kind of a poetic quote, but it seems to make sense. Or another quote from the physicists is, physicists are being forced to admit that the universe is a mental construction. They're saying the same thing. There's a host of others. Mind over matter tells us we are all mind stuff. We're actually a product of mind, and we covered some of that previously. Point 7, do we agree that thoughts create reality? Anybody disagree? No? Okay. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Should be obvious to us by now. And point 8, would not collective thoughts be that much more powerful? Right, so the power of one has got a one relationship. The power of 2, I've seen various different formulas, but it's a little bit like water. You know, when you've got water, a pipe, which is half an inch, and you want to increase the flow rate, if you increase that, the diameter of the pipe to 3/4 of an inch, not very much extra, it's about 8 times the flow rate. Yeah, so 3 to the power 4 is 3 3s are 9, and then 9 9s are 81. It's 81 times more powerful than 1. So 3 is 81 times more powerful than 1. If it's 4 people, it's about 256, I believe. I haven't done the math anyway. So it increases at an exponential rate, right? A quote to consider is that imagination works both ways. In other words, of the past, we hold memories, and they are images. But if you want to create the future, use imagination. Right? So what you imagine, you can manifest. Right? And it starts here, frontal lobe stuff. Another one is, thoughts create reality. If you create something you don't like, don't give it a second thought. I love that one. That doesn't mean you just ignore it, right? It also means you don't dwell on it. Right? You don't get into the suggestion is, don't get into the pure activist mode where you're fighting it, because when you fight it, you just feed it more energy. right? So it's more advantageous to acknowledge it because it's in your life. For some reason, it's popped up, and it's like a message to you. Why are these bad things happening? Why am I aware of them? You know, even if it's not happening to me, why am I aware of all these bad things happening outside of myself? And the answer, according to metaphysics, is that some very deep state, we've actually manifested it, right? And if anybody's familiar with the Ho'oponopono Hawaiian method of healing, when you heal something, even if it's outside of yourself, when you heal it outside of yourself, you heal it everyone, right? But you have to go very, very deep to do that, right? And the big example of Dr. Liu from Hawaii, who is a psychologist, an Indigenous national from Hawaii, he managed to heal all the inmates of a mental asylum, or the criminals, the worst criminals in Hawaii. He healed them all, and he didn't even meet one of them. He just went within and he asked within, why have I created this disharmony outside of myself? And he was so successful they had to shut down the facility. You can look it up online, the Ho'oponopono method, right? Don't take it from me, okay? The metaphysics tells us, don't fight the old, create the new. Because when you fight something, you're actually giving it more power, right? So when you fight the legal system, the corrupt legal system, they learn new ways to defeat you, right? So it's don't fight the old, create the new. And there's a quote that comes from Buckminster Fuller. Anybody know Buckminster Fuller from 100 years ago? And he was a very advanced thinker. I can't quite classify him, but he says, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change things, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. That makes perfect sense to me. You know, why waste your energy on a broken system? You need to put the energy into something new, right? And the two streams of humanity I was talking about, right? If enough of us start setting up these rural cooperatives, then it will have a multiplying effect, right? And they'll start manifesting around the world. Well, they're already happening in some countries of the world, and in particular Russia, right? From what we know, there's hundreds of these ringing cedars communities in Russia, and well, we tried to work on that 10 years ago, and we found it very difficult. And I think the reason might have been in Russia, the life in the city is not so good. In Australia, the life in the city is a breeze compared to Russia. Perhaps that's the reason, right? Especially if you're on welfare. You know, you can live like a king, and you don't have to lift a finger. And a lot of people do that, from what I can understand. Yeah, you don't want to just ignore the. Okay, see ya. You don't want to ignore the dark agendas, right? You need to acknowledge them and maybe meditate on them if you wish to see if you can heal them. And the metaphysics says that a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil method does not work. You have to know what it is you want to change. Right? So we need to get together in these types of forums and discuss how we would like things to be. Right? You just can't bury your head in the sand and expect it to get better. And one of the quotes from the conversations material is, only when you say, I did this, can you find the power to change it. At some level, you have all created what you call bad, right? Maybe at a very deep level. And so the only way to change it is to acknowledge that you have been helping to manifest it at a very deep level. Something deep in the psyche is not quite unified, not in the unity of existence. Let's see if I can finish this off now. Yeah, it goes further. In calling the bad things bad, you call yourself bad since you created them. And that's consistent, seems to be consistent with the law of attraction. Right? If something like that is in your life, it's because you attracted it, manifested it, and you can change that. Point 12, nearly there. With tens of millions dying from man-made causes per year, e.g. smoking, alcohol, traffic accidents, and the two big ones, hunger and abortion, would we not label the human race as indulgent? I think that's where we started with this presentation. And the COVID-19 deaths are only a tiny fraction. What I didn't talk about in those posters before is that the COVID figures, according to lots of information we've seen, are actually being inflated. Right? There's a Facebook site which has got has recorded thousands of cases where people who have died have been reported as COVID-19 deaths, and it's not a COVID-19 death at all. Right? It's been deliberately pumped up in order to create this illusion, the mayor of, oh, we need to be locked down. That's my conclusion from there. So is it therefore no surprise that humanity is under attack? No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And the final point is, rather than changing the real or imaginary masters, is it therefore not we as a collective that needs to change? And that makes the masters impotent and irrelevant. And my point of view is, it goes possibly a step further. The masters who are locking us down would probably be happy with that situation. Let's stop all this ecological damage, crazy way of living, isolated from each other, where we fracture our families and all this sort of thing, and get back to one of the blueprints of humanity. And we've got plenty of examples we can follow. That's been part of our study material that we've done over the years, and I can point you to lots of different examples of that, both here on Earth and elsewhere. Okay? And so if you get a chance, watch Real World Order, just look it up on YouTube, or go to the link if you get the email. And that's the movie for next week. It's about human and artificial intelligence, following Saturday. So let's go opposite. But it's also quite a engaging, moving, uplifting movie. It's about a human that beats up the artificial intelligence. Yeah. And that's last week's movie of man. And I'm going to stop yakking now. I think I've had enough to say. I'd like to hear from somebody else, please.